Welcome to Perfectly Clear. I'm Angie Taylor, and today I get the special honor of interviewing someone very close to me, my dad, Doug Taylor. You've heard him talk about clear senses and the intuitive world in past episodes, but today we're focusing on a very specific tool he's worked with for decades, palmistry. Doug doesn't just read lines, he reads energy, movement, and stories. In this episode, we'll talk about how palm reading fits into intuitive work, what the hands can really tell us, and how he uses his clear senses to go far beyond what's written in any book. You ready, Dad?
Yes, I am.
How did you first come into palmistry? Was it something you studied, or did it find you through experience?
I think the very first time I was able to see things when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and it just became very natural. And as time has gone on over the years, I saw a lot of spirit, a lot of people that passed, and it was through experience more than anything else. I certainly didn't study anything on it. It came to me, so to speak.
Was there anything specifically that drew you to hands rather than something like cards or charts or crystals?
No, I can't say there was. It was just from the get go. It was in the palm itself that I was able to see um, what was going on in people's lives, whether it was spirit that had passed or some future events that were coming into the people. But it was just something that drew me more than anything else. And I don't know if it drew, if I was drawn to it or it drew me into the palmistry itself.
Wow, that's so interesting. Do you remember the very first hand that you ever read?
I do. As far as a complete reading of a hand and seeing things very, very clear, I was probably about 12 or 13 years of age at the time. And it wasn't that somebody had actually put their palm out for me to read. In fact, I had just saw an open palm of somebody, and I automatically knew what was in that person's past history.
Do you remember any specific sensations or feelings that went along with that first kind of
It,
impromptu reading?
yeah, it was like an all of a sudden, like, wow, what just happened here? Well, why am I seeing something that that clearly not everyone else was seeing? Um, and I can remember what my grandmother used to say when I was very, very young. I never acknowledged, I never let on that I could actually see that in that specific hand.
Did you have to evolve from that first reading in terms of deciphering or trying to understand, because if you didn't have any guidance or any assistance, and I know, no one can really give too much guidance because we all see everything so differently, but did following readings change?
I think the best thing that happened to me without even knowing it was my clair senses were starting to spike, so to speak. Things such as clairvoyance, clairgustance, clair cognizance, those things started becoming more and more prevalent, and I was able to interpret more, see a little bit more by keeping some things open, even if it was just open to myself.
Wow. When it comes to palm reading, palmistry in general is just so interesting. I think that there's, like any modality, there's so many ways to interpret and to read and to um, bring to fruition what you're seeing. But for you specifically, what would be the most important part of a hand when you're reading? Is it lines or texture or shape or anything else?
So it's a good question. If you look at hand charts, on palmistry, either in books or on the internet. They tend to tell you what different lines mean, what certain palms mean. But for me, um, if I see a line, I equate it to a vision where I see somebody's their lifeline. For me, it shows um, that that their lifeline may be very deep. There's other things with lines I see. Um, more clairvoyance, more seeing what's happened, what's going to happen. In some cases, spirit as well.
Wow. So it's a lot more intuitive for you. It's kind of similar to the way I read tarot. It's not necessarily the science or specifics around it. It's much more relying on sense and intuition.
I think so. And again, the lines in the hand are uh, are pretty predominant for me. I'm able to interpret the lines or the vision in the hand. Um, I try to keep, if I'm reading somebody in particular, I do try to keep myself open. And I don't necessarily, when I read, I don't have to look at that palm for the entire reading because, again, as soon as I see that palm, usually there's something there that I can just um, talk about at a specific level.
Wow. Have you ever had, I know you've had so many experiences, but have you ever had a specific experience in reading where you maybe told someone something that the person wasn't necessarily ready to admit, or maybe they didn't know yet?
I think that happens an awful lot. And I know when you read tarot, it's the same thing. You can mention that they've been to a psychic previously and they've said, the psychic has said this. No, no, that hasn't happened. And 5 minutes later, they're turning around and they're saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I remember this now. For me, it's a case where people don't realize and they want to think immediately to the closest thing that they have, whether it's a brother, a sister, mother, father. And at the same time, it's not always just that. You have to wait and look further back to see what exactly it is.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's often when you do a reading, people aren't, they're so distracted, or they're so all over the place. They're trying to think of a million things at once, and they don't necessarily know what to focus on, or their mind kind of just draws a blank. They get so nervous and caught up in things that often they aren't able to recall certain areas.
I think that's true, but I also think that they're thinking or expecting a different message or
Hmm.
a different reading altogether. And
That's very true.
I'm not trying to uh, give them what they want. I'm trying to read to them what I see, and that's the difference, I guess.
That's so true. With hands, I do wonder, do they change? Does it, with age, does it affect the way they interpret a reading? Is it?
I think a couple of things happen. First of all, I think the hand doesn't necessarily change, other than obviously getting older. Uh, the story in the palm changes, whether something has come up that's changed that path that was originally in the palm. But I don't believe that it just changes because of age, other than the hand itself getting older.
Interesting. I know for myself, when I read, there's often mixed emotions. Have you ever had um, a moment where it's been quite emotional for you to read someone, when it's been hard for you to communicate with them?
It is. I'll tell you a couple of quick stories, at least one, anyways. Restaurants, as I mentioned in my earlier episodes, are very powerful for me. And one in particular was I had to get out of my chair and approach a table where two ladies were sitting. And I had to deliver a message to one lady who lost a child early in the child's life. And unfortunately, the person sitting with that person wasn't aware that she even had that child.
Wow.
So, yeah, and again, I'm the messenger, so I can only deliver the message to the people that are asking me to deliver it to.
Wow. That's a very tough one right there. I know that to an extent we try to deliver a message. Sometimes we try to filter, but there are definitely times where you have to communicate the hard parts, right?
Absolutely. Um, there's there's times where I won't necessarily deliver a very, very harsh message to somebody. I try to keep it a little bit more low key and a little bit more general if there's something that is there. Um, and if there's nothing there, people will still press, well, what else do you see? Is there something bad there? If I don't see it, I don't see it. And at times, I don't know whether people are looking for relief or they're looking for something that they can do to change what may be coming around the corner.
I know that as someone who's intuitive and who holds multiple clear senses, there's often times where um, we tune into senses almost subconsciously, unconsciously even. Do you ever find yourself noticing someone's hands casually, maybe at a grocery store or during a handshake?
Absolutely, I do. It's, you know, somebody gives you a high five, somebody wants to shake your hand, somebody's at a grocery store, as you mentioned, a cashier. Um, Anywhere where you see a hand, I try for the most part not to notice it, but if I do notice the palm and there's something there, a message there, I can see it. I'm not necessarily always going to tell that person that there's a message, but yeah, I can notice hands casually. It doesn't take long, and I can usually see that there's something there that can happen.
How can someone begin to understand their own hands, even maybe if they're not psychic or clairvoyant?
I think just by looking at their palm, they may see something, they may not. If they're not sure, they should do a little research on it. They should they should check online. It seems to be the greatest tool in the last number of years for psychic readings or understanding psychic readings a little bit. But definitely, there's things that they can do. Um, and if they're not sure, maybe they should go and get a rating from somebody that's a pretty reputable in the industry, I would
Hmm.
suggest.
Hmm. What would you say to someone who is maybe a little bit more nervous about having their palm read for the first time, or maybe after years?
Uh, the one thing I can truly say is that if you're looking to have your palm read, keep an open mind. I'm not saying be skeptical, but keep an open mind. Uh, Make sure that you're prepared if you are going in to listen to exactly what the person is saying to get the message. Because again, some people feel that um, there's one specific name, maybe it's a brother John or somebody, and they don't want to hear about Frank or Sam or whoever might be in that reading. So keep an open mind. If you're nervous about going and you're not sure, then maybe don't go. You know, having your palm read, tarot reading, uh, any of these mediums, any of these tools, I don't think is for everyone. Um, But if you're looking for some answers and you feel that Palmistry is a venue for you to go and find those answers, then by all means do so. Make sure they're reputable, and please keep an open mind. Keeping yourself well rested before you go is a big thing. So you're not nervous, you're not hyped, and you're not misinterpreting what the reader is seeing in your palm or your reading.
Those are some really great tips, Dad. I think a lot of people get nervous, or they get in their head, or they have too much anticipatory upset or nerves. And being open and being relaxed is so important to being able to receive information and emotions and that energy, right?
I think any medium or anybody for any reading, it's about, again, it's like keeping that connection open, as you mentioned, and about receiving the information as well as transmitting. If there's something there that you can transmit to the person that's reading that's happened to you in the past or what you may be going through currently.
With all this in mind, is there maybe, I know you shared one already, but is there another reading that has stayed with you over the years, one that really moved you or maybe really surprised you?
No, I can't say that happened. It's at least not that I can think of right now. Probably when we're done, a bunch will come to mind. But I can tell you some very strange readings that I saw and actually explained to them. One lady in particular was married, had no kids at the time. Actually, I don't even think she was married. I told her that she'd have a boy and she'd raise this boy alone. She ended up having 2 girls first, then she had a boy, and she ended up raising all those children alone. Another lady I told that she'd have more children, and she wasn't going to have more children. It wasn't possible to have more children. And yet she ended up having 2 more children. There's a number of things that have come. And again, I'm only delivering the message. I don't try to make the message up. I only deliver it.
Is there a specific thing that stands out maybe that you've learned about people through reading palms all these years? Something that stands out?
I think the one thing for me is when you read people, you sort of get to see a side of them that they don't expose to you or to anybody else for that matter. Yeah. So that's the one thing about reading, and I don't know if other people who are clairvoyant or mediums or intuition or any of those powers, I don't know if they're in the same situation.
Well, yeah, it's very interesting when you do read, you have this empathy that develops over the years because you have such intimate insight at times into people's lives, into darker pieces, into brighter times. There's so much variety in what we see. We don't get to pick and choose, unfortunately.
No, we were down east last year, and I had never, ever, ever, this is the one thing I've never, up until this past year, I had never had a psychic do a reading for me. Mm-hmm. And we were down east and we were at a marketplace. I think I already mentioned this maybe in another episode. And I saw a tarot reader in a booth. She was the only psychic that had a booth up. And I was drawn to her. And when I went in, she was asking if I wanted a reading. And I said, no, I'm here to deliver a message. So I delivered to her a message. And actually our last guest that we had for astrology, Jacqueline Kaiser, I was drawn to her. Actually, I went to a psychic fair for the first time ever last year. And I was drawn to her. And although she gave me a reading for my very first time, I was able to, it was almost like a 50-50. She read me, I read her. So those things sort of stand out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What I do wonder is, because you've been doing this for so long, not to age you, but it's been quite a while. And I've even heard stories about you reading friends or friends of the family long before I was even born. Um, have you ever had someone maybe come back years later and say that a reading you gave them was actually correct?
Yes, a couple of times. I'm not going to go too much on a couple of things such as passings. Uh, I specifically knew days of the week for two different people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I didn't know, time and that sort of thing, but I got the day of the week in both cases that their passing occurred. And it's not like I was keeping a scorecard that, oh, I was right. It was just being able to tell them that when the passing day was going to occur, and they both came back and said, yes, you were
Wow.
100% right.
Wow. That's it's always very difficult. It's heavy when I've had um, readings myself where I've given some insight into passings that are to come, and it's very difficult to deliver those messages. But the feedback, at least that I've heard, has been almost gratitude of being able to prepare themselves or um, have a better understanding or have a better ability to um, cherish certain moments with that additional insight that you can provide.
Absolutely. I think it's important. That's for sure.
Have you, on that type of note of insight, um, have you ever maybe read someone's palm and it shifted their own perspective in themselves? Or I've noticed I did a reading one time and it almost gave someone permission to step into themselves more.
Yes, it has happened a few times where people were unsure of themselves, unsure of their circumstances, unsure what they were going through, and how to continue on. And I think it did give some sort of guidance, and that's not what that's meant either. Again, all I'm doing is delivering a message by reading the news, but I know it has happened in several times.
So something I've had a little bit of personal questions with myself when I do readings or tarot readings, and we've chatted about this um, in our own time. But are there maybe moments when palmistry and mediumship overlap for you? Maybe spirits come through specifically through a palm reading.
They do, and again, if I see a palm and I see that there's someone trying to create an opening to deliver a message, then I can see it and I can talk to the individual about someone that is a spirit that is prevalent and that they're trying to get a message or a validation to the person that I'm looking at or I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking with.
Wow, that's it's very interesting because I have only ever known um, kind of clairvoyance and mediumship. I've never had just one or just the other. There's plenty of people that do only have the ability to be a medium, and they only have the ability of sight or additional clairsenses. But you yourself have both.
Uh, I guess I certainly haven't thought about it in that way, other than what you asked today. Um, I can certainly see spirit. I know when spirit's around. I know when there's a vision in somebody's palm that I can see and I can relate the message.
Wow. Yeah, it's a great blessing and a curse. I always like to say.
Well, for years I blocked the ability to receive message as best I could, and it was like spirit was yelling at me almost, and I ignored it for so long. And I'm finally to the point now that I'm able to open up more and channel my energies to receiving spirit and any messages that I can receive from them.
In terms of receiving messages and providing messages, after reading so many people and palms over the years, is there maybe something that stands out of what you think people are really searching for when they come to you for a reading?
I think there's some times where people almost, as we've talked at great length about the party favor, it's and sometimes they're very light about it, but deep down inside they want to hear the news being read to them, type of thing. And I think there's other times that people come because they feel that something is trying to connect with them, that spirit is trying to connect with them. And they don't know how to receive that message. They don't know how to validate it. But spirit themselves will validate their presence. So I guess what I'd like to try to sum up by saying is that palmistry, to me, it's one of the most intimate ways to connect. You're literally holding someone's story in your hand, I guess, but more than that, you're tuning into their energy. And the lines might give you structure, but the intuition, it fills in everything else. It's not just about fortune telling, it's about recognition. And when someone feels seen, really seen, it can change something for them.
If you've been curious about what your own hands might be saying, it is important to note that Doug does offer private readings. Each session is grounded, intuitive, and focused on what's real and what's useful. You can book your session through the website at www.perfectlyclaire.com. We will provide the links in the show description for you.
Thanks for joining me again today, Angie.
My pleasure.
And thanks for spending this time with us today. If this conversation sparked your curiosity about your own hands, or it just gave you a new way to think about intuition, we'd love to hear from you. In our next episode, we'll be exploring how the ordinary can become extraordinary through ritual and symbolism. You can find all episodes of Perfectly Claire wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, stay open, stay curious, and trust what you feel.